Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, so variant 7 has been out for a couple of days now already, and I have uploaded an initial completion guide. However, I did promise you guys full on exploration guides. Now, in order not to stretch out each individual video too long, I will upload the guides per chapter. So this video is going to be going all over chapter 1, quests 1 and 2. So let's jump right to it. So the quest number 1, as it typically is the shortest quest of the entire thing. It's fairly straightforward. We're going to start from the left side to the right. And on the left side, we do have 100% increased power gain for the defenders, not for the attackers. So you do not benefit from that. However, we do have X gene, which reduces attack of all but mutant champions by 50%. Well, the damage. Then we have mutant wrath and resistor. So ideally, obviously, you are meant to bring in mutant champions. And if we take a look at which mutant hero champions we have available, you're gonna immediately notice kind of like your better options. I personally used Archangel with Colossus. Now note that you can bring in Omega Red for Colossus synergy in order to get that crazy amount of damage, but you just will not really be able to use Omega himself. On top of that, obviously, we do have other worthwhile mentions of Domino, who was able to pretty much kill everything in a one level 2 attack. Then we have Emma Frost, Havoc, Iceman, Jubilee, White Magneto, Namor, all are, and Professor X, and obviously both Wolverines and Sunspot, all are perfectly viable options because this path isn't overly restrictive. Resistor makes it a bit slower, but Resistor doesn't really affect damage or time effect. Resistor doesn't really affect critical hits. So as long as you can bleed or crit at them, you are going to be perfectly fine. The path itself is a relatively easy. Only fight to kind of keep an eye out for is Hitmonkey, because obviously he's a champion that you don't really want to knock down, or at the very least you need to be on your guard once you do, because then he can shrug off debuffs and he can evade, and all sorts of nasty things can happen. Archangel still can work perfectly fine though. The middle path is what we described as the easiest path, and it's because of this bleed vulnerability and poison vulnerability, and we surely have seen all sorts of clips with Archangel absolutely demolishing that lane. So once again, we can check out our mutant champions, and Archangel is the best option, probably, and then following him relatively closely would probably be both of the Wolverine characters, because they have very potent bleed effects as well. On top of that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using Namor, because with increased ability accuracy, he actually bleeds on pretty much all of his medium hits, so you can stack up quite a lot of bleeds on the opponent, or just bring in Domino and drop level 2 and opponents are going to be dead. So again, this is considered to be pretty much the easiest lane in the entire quest, to be fair. On the right side, there is a very interesting cheese method available for the right path. You can see that it's Energize and Enhance Special 2. So opponent Special 2s will be unblockable. However, this Energize increases the power rate of both champions by 100%. And that means cheese. As soon as your power rate is increased, typically there will be at least one champion that can have some crazy ability access to like infinite stuns or something like that, and that is not an exception in this case. For pretty much all the fights except the Crossbones fight, you can just bring in your Gambit. Your Gambit will have guaranteed stun on his level 1s even after the rework. I'm glad they didn't take it away, and especially with increased ability accuracy, every time you drop level 1, opponent will get stunned, and because you have increased power gain, you will have enough time to get to another bar of power. So if you have a 4-star Gambit and a bit of time, you can run through this entire lane extremely simply, straightforward. Might be a bit boring, but it will work. So Gambit's cheese there is probably the best. Other than that, you can use either the Mystic champions or the Mutant champions. Like if you are not using the Gambit cheese, then I would personally probably suggest bringing in some sort of form of power control, and luckily Mystic class has plenty of that. I personally used Black Widow Clairvoyant because she was very compatible with Suicides. If you don't run Suicides, then Magic will probably be the perfect option for you there. And yeah, it's not overly hard path, especially if you do go ahead and cheese it a bit. That Crossbones fight might be quite annoying because it is very easy to push him to special 2. I actually did managed to avoid that special 2 in my initial exploration run, because I'm not able to do that consistently, but it was a fun fight. Either way, just bring in magic for that fight as well, and just power drain him constantly, drop your level 2s, and you should be fine. So that is the quest 1 done pretty much. We do have the boss, but as I said, the boss is just basically a token holder. It's hardly any more difficult than any other fight on the path. Pretty much any of the champions that I mentioned previously so far in the video will work. Just use Wolverine, just use Archangel. I used Colossus for it. You can bring in magic. It has poison, bleed, vulnerability, and you can have a good time. It's also possibly quite a good idea to exploit that poison vulnerability by flexing out your Dr. Voodoos and Man things, because they can do some very interesting things as well. Right, so that is the quest 1 done. The quest 1 is by far the shortest, easiest, simplest, most straightforward quest. Now we are going to take a look at quest 2 once the game stops loading. Right, so let's jump in there. This quest still only allows you to bring in mutant and mystic champions. There are 4 paths this time. We're going to start with the one that I characterize as quote-unquote easy path, because both mystic and mutant champions gain an increased amount of damage on this lane, and other than that you need to contend only with 50% increased power gain for the defending champion and buffet. So going back to Auntmai's website, you can see that we have a plethora of options, because you can basically deal with the buffet node by just inflicting a ton of debuffs on the opponent and having the spell mastery active, which is probably the easiest way to do that. In that case, you can again once use the Wolverine champions, I don't know, Sunspot, or any champion that can inflict plenty of debuffs on an opponent, or you can just flat out go for options such as Archangel to completely shut down the healing to begin with. And yeah, there is no absence of good options, as you can use both Mystic and Mutant champions. So Archangel, Black Widow, Clairvoyant will be great. Colossus doesn't like that buffet too much though. But we do have Dr. Voodoo, we have Domino, that you can easily use them. Frost, why not? Pretty much any champion that doesn't super actively spawn buffs and has access to some debuffs will be able to deal with this lane, considering that you do have quite some significant damage increase. Hence, I did call it the easy path. Now, next up, we do have to take a look at the second path, which is Mutant Wrath and Chaos. Now, Mutant Wrath and Chaos, now it also has Debilitate, which means debuffs last longer, which effectively does nothing unless you start chatting shit and get hit. And then we have Blood in the Water, where opponents can gain a Fury buff for 100%, which again is pretty much nothing. So only nodes to note is just bring in a mutant character, be aware of Chaos, because Chaos can make opponents go unstoppable basically as soon as you launch special attack. Right, so the champions to pick from mutant class, obviously, once again, will be the Archangel, will be the Colossus, Domino, your typical standard options. I don't feel a need to elaborate much more on this lane. It's just very simple. Bring in the mutants and it will be straightforward and easy. Only fight per se to note would be this Ebony Maw that might get annoying, but if you have higher experience to fighting Ebony Maw, it shouldn't be too bad, considering that you have increased ability accuracy, you have increased damage for mutant champions. So it's just one somewhat annoying fight on this lane that you have to get through, and that's about it. Now, path number 3, we see the return of Arcane Torrent, which was the global node in Variant 5, Chapter 2, which significantly buffs all Mystic characters, especially if they are able to place debuffs on opponents. So Dr. Voodoo and Man-Thing absolutely loves this node. And after that, we have Energize, 100% increased opponents' power gain. And we have Aspect of Evolution, which actually can get annoying. And this entire combination basically kind of demands that you finish out the fights quickly, or you can say goodbye to your crit chance. Now, ideal options to go up against this node combination would probably be the magic that can simply power lock the opponent, and if opponent has buffs, you're going to benefit from increased attack. So magic will be a perfect option because you can pretty much disable that Aspect of Evolution. Also, due to Arcane Torrent, we have Dr. Voodoo, we have Man-Thing, who will both benefit extremely from having that node active and being able to place buffs on opponent. Other than that, I personally used quite a bit of Black Widow Clairvoyant as well, because why not? She's a mystic. She can do her job well. But yeah, those are kind of like your go-to options, I suppose. Just make sure that whoever you are using is able to take down opponents quickly, because Aspect of Evolution kind of punishes you for dragging fights out. So you might not necessarily want to go for the best option, but you just want to go for the option that finishes the fights out quickly. Speaking of the opponents, then we have Black Bolt Carnage, which is basically food for Mystic Champions, and then continuing with Hela and Terax. Now, all of these fights will be fairly straightforward because they innately have buffs. So if you do have Mystic Dispersion, it can be special spamming Fiesta. And yeah, so not overly difficult path either. But the last lane here features Ancient Knowledge, which again basically tells you use Mystic Champions, otherwise the fights are going to be very slow. So once again, we're going to look at the Mystic class. And then we have 45% armor, which is actually a very, very good node to have. It's super helpful, giving opponents additional buff that you can nullify all the time and trigger Mystic Dispersion. Enhanced Special 1 and Special 1 Bias. It's a fairly straightforward node combination, absolute one of the most straightforward lanes. Again, the one fight you do want to be careful of is this Punisher 2099. He can be quite tricky because obviously you do not want to take those special attacks on block too much, and special one is unblockable and can just get quite rather nasty. Now, I personally did use Black Widow Clairvoyant, and what I did is I held my block active and kept stealing his power, so I kept into the poison phase and just basically push him a 3 bars of power, activate level 3, power drain him a bit, and just continuously kept dropping my own level 2s. But other than that, I think the best option for this fight will end up being Magic, because you just power lock him and all is good. You do not have to worry about enhanced special 1 or anything of the sort, or block damage. So Magic will work perfectly. And then we have Sorcerer Supreme, who can also just take all the hits on the block and heal from it, no matter how much damage they do. As long as she does have 1 HP remaining, she will regenerate the rest of it back. And only the first hit is unblockable, so if you manage your position carefully and are quick enough, you can block the rest of the bullets. So this is chapter 1, fairly quick video, 12 minutes. I'm not going to stretch it out much longer. The boss is Spidey, and he has pretty much nothing tricky on him. Plague Mind, Mutant Wrath, Spry. It begs for you to use the Archangel. Obviously, you don't really want to use Mystic Champions due to class disadvantage, and that Spidey hitting ever so much harder in the block. So looking at Mutant Champions, you can use Emma Frost, you can use Colossus, you can use Archangel, you can use any of the mutants with parry heavy method and enjoy that 125% attack increase. And Plague Mind is just something that will be somewhat annoying, but yeah, it's very simple, straightforward fight. And chapter 1 in itself is very, very easy. It does get a bit trickier in chapters 2 and 3, therefore stay tuned for those exploration guides in the next couple of upcoming days. But meanwhile, I do hope that this video has helped you out at least a tiny bit, and if it did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the good buttons, and I shall catch you guys soon. See ya! Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information